Hello there. If you like truth, you'll like it here. Welcome. What Carlos King really needs to do about being hated, having shows canceled, and producing abusive content. Full disclosure, I don't know much about Carlos King, other than he was alleged to have been fired from the previous reality show that he was a producer on. But I imagine that he started as someone who wanted to do some good. No, that's not true. I can't even fix my face to say that lie. I cannot imagine this guy having wanted to do any good. I imagine him as someone wanting to show whomever fired him that he could do it without them. But in a nasty, I'm gonna make it and then bring you down and spray paint your car while I'm at it kind of way. Carlos King reminds me of those Christians who will sing the loudest in the church and praise God with what looks like their whole heart. Arms waving, tears streaming down their cheeks, but will cuss you out in the parking lot if you don't get out of their way fast enough. So although I was tempted to say he likely started out wanting to do some good, my heart and spirit don't believe it. Not based on what he shows of himself and the stuff he allows around him and out of his shows. That said, it isn't too late for him to do better and be better. I have heard that he is hated by fans of Melody. I can see why that is. But I imagine he'd be disliked by anyone who loves a woman, girl, or female of any age. It isn't anyone's cup of tea to watch women be mistreated in any capacity, but let alone as entertainment. I have heard that some of his shows are being or have already been canceled. Well, if they're anything like Love and Marriage Huntsville, or Love and Marriage Hip Hop like I like to call it, I am not surprised. Again, watching the same old plot of mistreatment and abuse disguised as entertainment that only seemingly advantages men, week in and week out, would get old. Carlos is a man that prefers men. He has an affinity, a self-proclaimed affinity for men. That's his business. But I think he thinks we all think this way because his idea of entertainment is certainly male-centered and often lobbied against women. He might be into that, but perhaps he shouldn't have an audience of women if mistreating them is his thing. He might want to find an audience of male queens or women bashers if he wants to serve bashed women as his entertainment of choice. In any case, I have a few suggestions for him if ever he is interested in actually using his platform for any good. And even if he isn't interested in using it for good, I still have some ideas that can help him use his entertainment platform for actual entertainment. So, Carlos, listen up. Number 1, Carlos, you need to revamp and revise the show. Go back to basics. You initially said that your show was going to be about successful Black business people who just so happen to be in relationships. But I don't think that was ever the case. I don't think that was ever your intention. You were always planning to exploit the personal lives of the castmates and suck them dry in the process. And maybe even that would be acceptable. Actually, I don't think it would. But for the sake of argument, let's say it would. So maybe that would be acceptable if you did it fairly and across the board. But you don't. As I said before, you seem to have an affinity for the men. Some say it's an affinity for the Scots. But I don't think it applies to all of the Scots. I think it applies to the male Scots, because you seem A-okay with helping to make a fool of the female Scots, or to help the men get away with the things they do. As a show producer, a producer who seems willing to get low and trashy, if you really want the dirt on your cast, then don't you want it on everyone and not just the ones who aren't your chosen ones? You let Marcel dictate what he will and won't talk about on a show you produce, which, at first glance, looks like you're protecting his wife too, especially since it seems much of what he wants to hide pertains to his alleged affairs. But your protection isn't of her. It's of Marcel. If it had anything to do with her, you'd do a better job of shielding her from looking like a plumb fool at worst, or an emotionally abused woman at best. But you don't care about her. You only favor her husband, just like you favor Maurice. You've allowed Maurice to stay on the show even though he has the personality of a slice of wet bread and doesn't bring anything to the table. In other words, you make no secret about the fact that you favor the men. But I'd expect that of your type. You make it very well known that you have an affinity for men. And it is my belief that gay men see straight women as the competition and are never in a position to be their saviors. They don't try and wouldn't even if they could. But your favor doesn't end there. You definitely and pretty clearly favor Martel Holt. You have let him pull every stunt he could and have never reprimanded him, nor offered any consequences for his actions. Not that you're his father, but you are his boss. And I don't know a boss that would allow an employee to physically threaten and intimidate another, nor commit actual crimes against them, and be allowed to continue to share an office space with them. But you allow it. You not only allow it, but you apparently use tricks to orchestrate it happening. That's sinister and not okay. You bring negative energy into the atmosphere, but then seem surprised when negativity ensues. You act hypocritically and only seem to wear a producer hat when you're attempting to elicit whatever response you want to elicit from the cast or from your audience. Like the time you told Martel you didn't understand how offensive the Despicable Scots were in talking about Melody's baby girl. You said you didn't get it because you aren't a father. You know, and I know you know that that's a bunch of bull. You don't have to be a father to see that a child is being mistreated by a bunch of badly built adults. You don't have to have produced a kid to produce a show with enough class to check adults who have it in for a child. And it's not that they had it in for the child, in my opinion. They'd just been trying to break Melody for so long, with no success, that they'd simply moved on to her child. And you allowed it. But first you gave yourself the stupid excuse of, well, I'm not a father, so I don't know how children should be treated. I'll bet you that even if you haven't been bitten by a snake, you'll know they're dangerous. And even if I don't feed you horse poop, you'll know it isn't tasty. In other words, you don't have to experience something firsthand to know or see its effect. You know what they were doing. You saw what they were doing, and you were okay with it. The only thing you weren't okay with was being called out on allowing it. So you pretended you didn't have common sense to recognize it. But your audience isn't as stupid as you thought they were, and hoped they were. And they saw you for what you were. If you don't want to be seen as a snake, stop acting like one. If you claim to be a Christian, act Christ-like. And none of how you're operating, including choosing to allow some to be abusers and users, and others to be abused and used, is Christ-like. I don't know why you thought this behavior would endear you to the public. What about seeing a cast of women mistreated by their husbands did you think we'd enjoy? Just because you are a man that doesn't care for women doesn't mean we feel the same. You overestimated our willingness to find abuse as entertaining, and now your shows are suffering. Number 2, Carlos. Produce shows that show us in a positive light. I know you want to be the Andy Cohen of reality TV, but he's already taken. What you have is an opportunity to be yourself, a male black producer who can produce shows that entertain a primarily black audience. Why do black producers think black people can only be shown as baby mamas or drug dealers or welfare queens or being loud and obnoxious? Between you and 50 Cent, aka Curtis Jackson, we can't catch a break. I don't watch 50 Cent shows because I am uninterested in seeing us look like what others think we are. We are so much more than how we are portrayed. Let 50 Cent tell it. We are a bunch of drug-running, gun-shooting menaces to our own culture and to society as a whole. And let Carlos King tell it. We are a society of dogged-out women who are so grateful to have a man that we will do whatever it takes to keep him, which is what you're counting on, because that's the struggle you want to sell as entertainment. Carlos, we've had enough. It isn't entertainment. and it makes you look like a man whose only producing talent is his ability to find and exploit trauma. Trauma in marriages, trauma in finances, and trauma among family. And now you've managed to produce trauma among your audience, inflicting emotional pain and reopening psychological scars and wounds for women all across the nation. Women who themselves may have been in abusive marriages, or who may have had encounters with women like Martel's side piece. The trauma that you packaged to sell as entertainment became a reinvigorated trauma for so many more women. But you kept it going because you saw that it was selling for a while. So you kept it going and added a bit more to it, and a bit more, and still more, until the weight of it all was too much and your audience couldn't take anymore. You can't fix what was. I think the show is now irredeemable. But you can try to produce shows that pull the idea of us out of your swampy cesspool and show us as the multidimensional people we are. We aren't just a bunch of country bumpkins with no good men. We aren't just cheated on and discarded women with an axe to grind. We aren't broken women who are desperate for a man, or fame, or the coins you throw our way. We are so much more. And if you can't see that, perhaps you should produce shows that don't cater to or draw upon the Black community. If you are incapable of seeing us as anything more than what you see us as, then stop producing shows for us. Produce a show that represents what you like and what you're about. And that seems to be men, and more men. In this way, you can spare the rest of us the trauma you want to package and sell as entertainment. Personally, I will never watch any show you produce. But for those who are still willing to give you a chance, maybe you can try using the platform you've been blessed to have to do some good. All right, y'all. That's it, and that's all. Hello there. If you like truth, you'll like it here. Welcome. If you don't, or if you believe in groupthink, or bullying others into believing the popular opinion, then this isn't the place for you. So go ahead and just cancel me now. On this channel, we don't discuss my truth or your truth. We discuss the truth, and no topic is off limits. So, log in, like, subscribe, get comfy, and comment. It's nice to have you here. So let's talk.